sometimes, oftentimes, you wonder why people make certain movies. Movie in question is Cyrano. It's called Cyrano. It's a version of Cyrano de Bergerac, which is a play from the original play is from 1897 by a Frenchman. The whole thing is written in verse. Why make a movie of Cyrano? The story is about a man. He has such a low self-image that he doesn't talk to the person he loves to the point that he lets her believe somebody else uses his words. And to the point that he dies without ever confessing his love in such a way that it can be reciprocated. It's sad. Why make a movie? But the thing is, I usually watch movies just, okay, the premise sort of, I read like 5 words of the premise and I say yes or no, and if I do yes, then I don't read anymore because I don't want to be spoiled in any way. So when I opened up this movie and I realized, yes, I understand this, because they picked Peter Dinklage to play Cyrano. And the peanut gallery is now nodding. And for the people who have seen the film Roxanne from 1998, I believe, the original play, because I haven't seen the original play, I don't want to see something in verse. I'm sorry. It's from 1897. It's gonna be dripping in things I don't want to see. So I'm going with the one from the Roxanne movie, and in the Roxanne movie, because that stars Steve Martin, who is very good-looking dude. They gave him a funny nose because that's in the play as well, but they have to belabor that he is something wrong with him because of his funny nose. They belabor him for 10 minutes, and I was going, oh God, if they're going to do that in this movie, but this movie is smart. It doesn't. They show Peter Dinklage. They show him as Cyrano, who is a feisty fella, willing to go at swords with anybody who impugns his honor, like he should be in the story, and they don't say anything about his height, which is, of course, the issue, is his height. The only thing they do, and it's a beautiful scene, and the scenes are pretty much as the play, with slight variations because the situation is slightly different. The opening scene is where Cyrano and this actor are picking a verbal fight on the stage. Cyrano is off the stage and the actor is on the stage. And then this popinjay walks on, Marquise de something or other, and he feels affronted in some way and gets himself into it, and they end up in a duel. And there's this, I'll try and see if I can find a screenshot of Peter Dinklage, who is a compact fella, and this popinjay who is not big, but he's like tall. He is very tall and spindly, standing, both with rapiers, standing at each other. And it's a great image because it shows exactly how the situation is. The original story and the original character, who is a real, Cyrano de Bergerac is a real person, but the play takes the real person and does their own thing with it, so the actual Cyrano. But the actual Cyrano was in 1640-ish. This film, and I was thinking about it, why doesn't put them in that time. They put them in a vaguely 18th century world, but not quite. And I was thinking about that, why and how that works. And I think it was actually a brilliant move to do that. Because, let's be fair, Cyrano was an army man, and even though we'd like to be different, things like the army are going to have demands on height and both ends, not too tall and not too short. And a person who is as small as Peter Dinklage would not have gotten in any army. So he wouldn't be an army captain. And this Cyrano, the story of Cyrano, demands that he is in the army for realsies and not like a drummer boy or anything like that or whatever. So by putting the time in a sort of a fantasy time, you can do two things. One, you can say, okay, that is also fantasy. Now he can be in the army. And the other thing is that they can roll out all those smarmy, overpowdered 18th century stuff that nobody gets a chance to do because there's nothing terrifically interesting or fun in the actual 18th century. So you don't get a chance to show that off. So now that's why you get the Popinjay all powdered up in his wig. And this movie does the wig correctly because in the fight doesn't end well they first have an informal fight and then Cyrano's mouth runs off with him a little bit and the Popinjay gets really annoyed and tries to attack him from the back, and then Cyrano turns around and that's one dead Popinjay. As he falls, the wig comes off and underneath the guy is bald, which is exactly as it should be. That is how they did it in the wig time, is when you wear wigs, you have it either really small because it's growing out, or you have it off. This guy had it off because it is summer in France with a wig on. What else are you going to have on your head? As little as possible. But the fact that the guy dies in the duel where everybody can see him and Cyrano doesn't get any flack for it shows that this must be the 1640s or thereabouts and not the 1740s, because by 1740s it was illegal to duel. If you were in a duel and people knew about it, you had to leave the country afterwards, and that doesn't happen. So it cannot be the 1740s, it has to be the 1640s or thereabouts. So, but if it's fantasy, it doesn't matter. The other thing that makes it fun if it's fantasy, colors don't matter, so you can put all your diversity in. Yes. Peanut Gallery is happy now. They do that straight away by getting as much as they can. This version, which was written by Erica Smith, who is actually married to Peter Dinklage. So this is she wrote it for Peter. They performed it on stage because it has a musical element in it. I'm not going to call it a musical because yes, it has musical elements in it, but yeah, I don't think so. It's not a musical. This is not a musical. It just has musical elements in it. She wrote it for the stage. Dinklage and the lass who plays Roxanne, which is Haley Bennett, performed it on stage. And then they had, for the film, they had a couple of other round actors and anybody. It's good. Yeah, the musical part of it. Like I said, I don't call this a musical. I call this a drama with musical elements. When emotions get really strong, they start to sing. But I don't find that in any way, because you have to remember that the original play was already written in verse. So them having a verse type of thing going is quite normal. I thought the music was the music is not super brilliant, but did exactly what it should do. I think we Dutchies have a lot of musicals. We have a lot of history in musical, or things that have music in them but are not musicals. So this is not strange for me at all. What a thing that has music in it but isn't a musical does and needs to do is have music that is very singable in a not for trying to write a pop song that is going to make it big on the charts. No, something that is easy singable by anyone, or particularly if you're writing it for somebody, you write your song towards the singer, which is maybe what happened here, because turns out the whole thing is in house, and Dinklage has a nice voice, and they make use of that very much. I think he's actually pretty handsome dude. Yeah, no complaints there. But he has a nice voice, and they make sure that they write the music in such a way that it does to all his strengths. I would like to. I had not seen Peter Dinklage in anything else yet. I know he's very, very known for Game of Thrones, but I haven't seen Game of Thrones. So the only other time I saw him was in a role in Avengers, and it wasn't a very big role, and he was nice in that. But it's not a very big role. This is a nice big role. You can shows you how good he is, and the fact that the thing first went on stage means this is really well. I mean, this is the ultimate way of well rehearsed. And it's lovely. I enjoyed it very much. Being for what it is. But it is a story of a man who is so colored by his own image of himself, which is very negative, that he doesn't let himself get anywhere in life. And that is sad, because I was for one moment I thought maybe they're going to change the ending, but no, they didn't. This is really straight up a Cyrano as written, the story as written in 1897. And so it's male-centric because it's Cyrano's story. There's a little bit about the guy who... maybe for the people who don't know the story, it's a very well-known story. So Cyrano has a cousin. They're both in Paris. They're both impoverished, but they are of good class, which is a problem in itself. She can't go marry a baker. That's a big problem that women have. If you're upper class, if you're an upper class girl, you can't go marry a baker and just be happy. It doesn't work that way. So she's upper class but broke. He is upper class but broke, but he can go into the army, which he does, and it makes a good money. And they are, I believe, cousins, so they know each other. And he is hopelessly in love with her, and she has a beau every other night, because you cannot get anywhere around at all if you don't have a beau. It's like having a pair of shoes. You must have them. It's simple as that. It's not even if she wants one. And then she falls in love with one of the new recruits at the army base. This is all happening in Paris. At just far sight, he is beautiful. Mm-hmm. Christian is beautiful. Yeah. And she asks Cyrano, you're in charge of new recruits, can you go and see what he's like? And if he's something, then I'd like to meet him. And Cyrano goes, sure. And goes talk to Christian. And Christian also fell hopelessly in love with Roxanne from afar, because she is beautiful. And he sort of goes, and then Christian goes, oh, Roxanne, can you not introduce me? And then Cyrano goes, Roxanne has really lofty ideas about people, and Roxanne has poetry ideas about what love should be like. This is a theme. Girls poisoned by poetry of love is a theme that runs through many novels in the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century. And she basically the setup is this: you tell the girls that love is everything, and then when they start believe it, you punish them for it. That's how this, and that's how the setup is in this thing as well, unfortunately. So she would like a love letter. She tells Cyrano that she would accept the love letter from Christian. And then Christian can only write, I love you, I love you, I love you. And Cyrano goes, oh my God. How about I give you a few hints? Maybe put an adjective. I love you beautifully, or dearly, or lovely, or eternally. And very quickly, Christian says, you write the letter. And this is the mistake. He writes the letter and then lets Christian sign it, and they bring it to Roxanne. And the letter is beautiful because Cyrano actually can write poetry really well. So, they take this all the way to the end, to where Roxanne is hopelessly in love with the person who looks like Christian, but sounds like Cyrano. Why? And I can't even blame her, because she's getting a fraud. There's a fraud being perpetrated on her. She doesn't see it until it's way, way too late, until everybody's dead or dying. Because unlike the Roxanne movie, which ends with Roxanne finding out and then calling Cyrano on it, and they live happily ever after, because she says, and knows, who cares. In the original play, they let it play out, and in the end Christian goes to his death in the war, and she never finds out that the guy she loved, who wrote those beautiful things, is Cyrano, who just keeps visiting her for years and years after in the nunnery. In the original play, it was 15 years. They cut that down for 3 years, because that was, oh my God, it was too much. This is beautiful. I know there's people. The Peanut Gallery looked up some of the wiki, and it said that it wasn't a box office success. This is not a box office success kind of movie. This is the kind of movie you can have would do well on DVD, on people who like that sort of thing. Even though the costumes and the time is sort of fantasy mix between 1640s and 1740s, it's still really well done. The locations are wonderful. I think they did it on location in Italy or France or somewhere, because it's beautiful. Acting is great. The music, like I said, not intrusive but supportive of the endeavor. I don't know. Maybe because they marketed it as a musical. Musicals never do well in film, and I'm not quite sure why. This is not a musical as such. It is musical elements, not musical. Do you have something, Peanuts?
Well, Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 85% based on over 200
There you
reviews.
go. That's what it's worth.
Yeah. Average rating of 6.3 out of 10. And they quote it as uneven yet untimely, hard to resist. No, ultimately hard to resist. Well-acted musical spin-off on the oft-adapted classic tale.
People do realize that people know this story very well. For the people who know the story, they know it very well. It's one of those stories that everybody knows. And I think they did that's why I thought at one point they were going to deviate, and it might have been a good idea, but they wanted to go do the classic. One of the points is that this is a story of a guy who has a self-image, however correct, that it kills him in the end. And that's what it's about. in the original play it was because he was had a big nose. But what they meant in the original play is the big nose and stuff like that is because he's ugly. And 17th century, 18th century France, they didn't want ugly people. They wanted pretty people. This is a pretty people place. So being ugly, puts you at a disadvantage. It's a handicap. But the sad thing is that Cyrano, any of the Cyranos, don't give Roxanne the chance to make up her own mind. They give her an illusion, and then when the illusion dies, they let all that die. When the illusion, the vessel of the illusion, Christian, dies, they don't step forward and say, hey, this is what's going on. And they give her, they perpetrate a fraud on her. It's horrible. They lose her so many years of her life, and in the play it was 15 extra years, which makes her, if she's 15 years out of the marriage market, she's not going to get back in because it's too late. And they could have been together for 15 years, you know? So Cyrano doesn't only do himself dirty, he does Roxanne dirty, but he does Christian dirty as well. Christian didn't have much chance anyway, because I'm sure he was the younger son of a nobleman. That's why he goes to the army, because people are extra, and you go to the army to get glory. But now he got sad in glory, because he did die in the battle, but he made him sad. You made him sad, you made Roxanne sad, and you made yourself dead. But start doing this with Peter Dinklage is because I looked up the numbers on this, but dwarfism is maybe 1 in 15,000 people have it. 15,000 people. How many of those people in 15,000 people are also talented? So a person who has dwarfism and is talented. How many people are talented in Hollywood? And then divided by 15,000, you know? That's how few you have. So when you have a talent like Dinklage, in the shape that he is, physically, the way that he is, get out these Cyrano de Bergeracs and do them, because this is your chance. She's Miss Smith is quite right to do that. Write him a musical. Go for his talents. Turns out he can carry a tune. Yep, make it a musical. This is the chance, and I think that Hollywood doesn't do this enough. I mean, Dutch entertainment does this a lot, because we have that fewer people, and when you get a talent, you go for broke. Once in a while we get a young boy who has talent, and then we put everything aside and try to get him to do a couple of movies. Because how often does that happen? Not often at all. Make use of it. This is a good use, and this is a sleeper. This will do fine on streaming services and on TV, and this will make his money back even if it didn't on the opening day. Yep, and that's my opinion, and sticking to it.